What's going on, guys? Chuck here, coming at you with another 3D classic. Today we have 1953's The Glass Web, starring John Forsythe and Edward G. Robinson. Not a whole lot much known about this. This is something that was recently released through a 3D archive and Kino, and of course it was Blu-ray 3D, so I snatched it up right away. Basically, this is your run-of-the-mill average film noir. It's basically all there is to it. Not a whole lot. You've got John Forsythe, who is a screenwriter. First of all, if you're not familiar with John Forsythe, he's most well known from the 80s in the primetime soap opera Dynasty, playing, I believe it was Blake Carrington. That's what he was most known for. And also, hosting and narrating the old Universal Studios Florida VHS tape, which I have somewhere. Which when it first opened up, he toured around the whole Universal lot. It was actually really good, and it's a classic because most of that stuff's no longer there. Anywho, he is a screenwriter for a true crime detective show or true crime show. Basically, takes real cases and reenacts them. He writes the script for him. Edward G. Robinson is basically kind of the researcher who's very much about making sure you get the details. He's a stickler for those kind of things. What happens is you find out John Forsythe's basically been having an affair, but he's trying to put an end to it. However, the girl he's having an affair with, who is also an actress model, she is blackmailing him to, plain and simple, she's blackmailing him, which it's her MO, because you find out she's actually going through a couple of different, guys. She has a husband also, and she's, been kind of, flirtatious with the Edward G. Robinson character. She's always trying to get away, find some way to use her looks, her charm, whatever, feminine wiles, if you will, to have men take care of her. And so, like I said, she's blackmailing John Forsythe. He basically has no choice. He's gonna, do everything he can, get her money, get this out of this, get rid of this whole thing. He comes to her apartment and finds out she's been murdered. And now he's trying to clear up everything to make it so he's not a suspect. And it seems like all's well and good, but then the Edward G. Robinson character, who's big stickler for this research, once the cases come out, he decides, hey, this will make a great episode for our show. So we should really, cover this, which is going to put this in a whole lot of, in the limelight, if you will. And also the big thing with this TV show is they're trying to get their sponsor, which is I think Colonial Cigarettes. They're trying to get them to, buy the show and sponsor. So that they're hoping to get this great big, this really good episode for us. And they're thinking that this murder case will do it. Of course, that's going to create a lot of headaches for the John Forsythe character. And that's it in a nutshell. Again, it's your typical low rent, I want to say, run-of-the-mill film noir. It's not a whole lot here as far as suspense. It's really all the beats, and this could be coming from the fact that this is from 1953, where way ahead. We know all the film noir tropes, if you will. But I really feel even in this time, a lot of stuff is pretty much on the nose and obvious as to who your killer is and what's going on. I mean, there's not a whole lot of, ooh, I'm surprised, I can't believe that happened. No, you pretty much see it happening a mile away. So there's not much in the way of suspense. So some little background detail I could find, because there's not a whole lot on this. It's kind of like not a lost film, but a forgotten film, more than lost. Apparently this was like the second 3D release from Universal after it came from outer space, which was, this is also directed by Jack Arnold, who Universal went to a lot for their 3D. Obviously, it came from outer space. This, both Creature from the Black Lagoon films. So he was your 3D director for Universal, I guess. I don't know how that worked, but it's kind of, interesting. Excuse me. Says here, from what notes I could find, the film was tested in both. I'll put this down. The film was tested in both 2D and 3D, and audiences prefer the 2D version. for whatever reason, the processing equipment wasn't the best. There was a prejudice to 3D, whatever the case, but they didn't really care for it, so it was released more in 2D. And really, there's no record apparently of this being shown in 3D in any major market, New York, Los Angeles, anywhere. But there is a 3D print, obviously, and then it was discovered, or not discovered, but restored from 3D Archive, and they put it out there. But that's the biggest kind of information I have on this, which is interesting. And I can kind of see why the audience probably wouldn't care for the 3D version, or prefer the 2D version, I should say, over the 3D, because really, I don't really see a reason to put this in 3D other than for the gimmick. Again, film noir doesn't really strike me as a 3D kind of film, much like with Moana Devil. It was the first one, and when it's a jungle adventure, it doesn't really scream at me 3D. It came from outer space, screams it should be in 3D for some reason. It just feels more sci-fi horror. Seems more of a 3D fit than adventure or film noir. And the 3D is fairly underwhelming. And then there's a couple of good shots where the 3D works really well, and mostly it's in the very beginning when they're like on a studio filming, because you open up on a woman and a man coming into like a mine shaft, and they're just like, she's like, okay, it's a mine shaft. What? She's like, I'm leaving. He shoots her and throws her on a mine shaft. I'm like, what the heck? This is interesting. Come to find out, they pull back and you see all the camera cranes and everything. They're on a studio set. Now it looks really cool because the cameras actually have that sense of depth. Like they're kind of coming at you. You really get that. So everything showing on a studio lot really looks good with the 3D as far, again, the sense of depth. Also scenes when they're showing the director and they're up in the director's booth, whatever, and they're from that, like over the shoulder of the director, you see like through the window, you're looking out on the soundstage and everything. So you have that different planes of view, and the 3D really stands out there. And then later on in the film, there's a scene with Edward G. Robinson and John Forsythe where they drive up on a huge hill or mountain, whatever, and it's a cliff overlooking like I'm assuming the ocean or whatever. And that looks really good. You really get that, you're on the edge of the cliff and it's perilous and dangerous, and the ocean's way down there. One wrong step and ooh. And that's it. Throughout most of the film, though, the 3D is kind of just very underwhelming. You really don't even get a sense of depth a lot unless you're really looking at it. It can just move on. And then there's also the parts where they try to use the 3D gags, which is strange, again, because the film is so, like I said, it's talky because, again, it's a film noir, it's kind of what they're doing. After John Forsythe discovers the dead girl and he's trying to run away from her apartment, and he's having this manic run through as he runs through the streets, all these crazy things are happening, which really seems contrived. Like, a truck stops and you have like, a ladder or something's coming at you. Like, oh my God, watch out, buddy. He almost gets hit by a bus. Some, rocks falling or whatever. All these different accidents he almost happens because he's not paying attention. And that's when they tend to come at the, screen. A guy's like watering the street or something. Says, hey, what are you doing? And flicks the water at the camera directly at you. So these are the gags. They're all putting them in this one little spot here. And it really sticks out like a sore thumb, because they're obviously placed here for no purpose. It doesn't, it pulls you out of whatever you're into in this movie, which isn't much, honestly. So it's a little like jarring, and not that I'm against sight gags in 3D. I love a good sight gag in 3D. But I know it's a tipping point with a lot of people. Some people think it's ridiculous. Some people really like it. To me, again, if you're doing the 3D for it, you like that you have it, but I don't want them all pull out at once. Spread them throughout the film, make them feel organic. Don't just like, oh, it's obvious, and in some cases that works. There's a case, you go back to like Friday the 13th. There's obviously stuff that's not organic, but it's there. But at least they're spread. They're not throwing any gags in, 3 or 4 gags in a matter of 3 seconds. least I don't think so. I may have to count that when it comes. But so that's kind of, and again, and because of the nature of the film being what it is, like a film noir, it just doesn't. 3D just does not seem like it was made for this kind of film. I really don't have a whole lot on this one. There's not a lot of, like I said, background information on this. It's a pretty simple release. The Blu-ray said it's a Blu-ray 3D. As far as special features on here, you don't really have any. You've got the the theatrical and TV spots on here are both in 2D. It's again the Kino Lorber 3D archive. Blu-ray, and this has a slipcover. This is the reverse artwork. The other side of it is this artwork, but I switch over to the poster. Inside, it does come with a pair of anaglyph glasses, Kino Lorber Studios, and 3D Film Archive. You can see that right there. So you have the option of watching in the anaglyph or in the 3D Blu-ray. And here's the your basic plain Kino Lorber disc, nothing fancy. And that's it. Nothing really much to write home about for the glass web. Kind of underwhelming Blu-ray 3D. Not, I don't say so much in terms of 3D, but in terms of the film was just not that great. It's like I said, it's cookie cutter by the numbers. It's a low budget. At least it feels like a low. Maybe it's not low budget. I don't know. It's Universal. Maybe somewhere it is. I don't know what the budget was, but it feels like a cookie cutter. It's a low end. Put it that way. It's a low end film noir. Much better out there. And again, I don't think it needed the 3D. It just a gimmick, and it was unnecessary. So that's all I got to say about this one. This is a quick one. Hopefully, I've been out of this for a while, and I can get back and try and pick up some of these because I got a couple some 3D ones I'm really excited to check out. Next one up, when I get to it, hopefully I went too far from now, will be Alfred Hitchcock's Dial M for Murder. I was able to get that Blu-ray 3D recently, and I'm really excited to check that because I have not seen that one. My Alfred Hitchcock, honestly, is very limited to pretty much Psycho and Rebecca and bits and pieces of the birds. So yeah, I'm looking forward to checking this one out and seeing the 3D on it and see how it looks. So that is it for now. If you enjoyed this, click thumbs up, share, subscribe, leave me a comment below. Let me know if you've seen the glass web, if you've heard of the glass web, do you even care about the glass web, whatever your thoughts may be, or just say hi. I'll always take hi. So until next time, this is Chuck saying I will see you on the other side.